Welcome, welcome. Come in, take a seat, put up your feet. So, Wuthering Waves just launched and everyone is on it like flies on... Alright. I may be coming on a little bit too strong. Let's take a step back and take a deep breath. Okay, so... The game came out and everyone is playing it, myself included. Started off my journey in Soul 3 and to be quite honest, it was okay. As of the moment of writing, I spent around 20 hours playing the game, and in that time, I've reached Union level 21. I think I've seen most of what the game has to offer as of this point, so I'm pretty confident in the conclusions that I've reached. Do please bear in mind that there will be a lot of comparisons to Genshin Impact in this video, as that is the only real direct competitor that Wuthering Waves has so far. Now let's start from the beginning. You start the game and the first thing you do is select your character. Believe it or not, I actually had to think long and hard about this because both characters look great. I don't recall any other gacha game where I spent so much time trying to figure out which one I wanted to pick. Eventually, I decided to listen to my inner edgelord nature and went for the male rover. One cool cutscene with awesome music later, I wake up with our resident mom, Yang Yang, hovering over me like a worried mother hen, alongside Chixia, her red-headed partner. What were they doing there? No one knows. But the point is, they found me and apparently they are suffering from the same problem I had during character selection, which is not knowing what to do in the presence of someone so scathingly hot. They decide to escort you, and from here you have your tutorial sections, and honestly, combat feels nice from the start. You move on a bit more, meet Baija, who will be our resident healer. She gives you a quick check with her... What even is that? Doesn't matter, because we're getting attacked by the Crownless. It's not like we've been told that this place in particular is very dangerous and could awaken at any moment, putting us in severe danger. Fight the tutorial boss, kill it, and impress your companions with the fact that you can eat your enemies with your bare hands. Everyone is impressed and gushes about how amazing you are. Moving on, they escort us to the city, set the stage for what the city is, and then send you on another mission on the front lines. When you leave the city, you meet a monk called Jianshin, who will join you on this mission to search for someone that's been missing. Once you pass the city gates, the world becomes your oyster, so to speak. You're free to go anywhere you want, do whatever content you like. You can very easily go from one end of the map to the other with very little to impede you. Even if you do find stronger enemies, you have so much mobility at your disposal that avoiding them is very easy. Speaking of mobility, let's get into the good aspects of the game. Kuro Games decided to take almost everything people have been complaining about Genshin and improve upon it, mobility being a huge aspect. First thing, sprinting while out of combat. It does not consume stamina. This is a big improvement because there is a lot of ground to cover in Wuthering Waves. Aerial mobility has also been improved by allowing double jumping and the grapple hook, which will propel you forward and upward, allowing you to reach higher points with ease. Take notes, Genshin. This is some much needed improvements. There are only so many times I can be entertained by Lisa climbing. Gliding also feels better due to how easy it is to control. Ever had one of those moments in Genshin where you just wanted to turn around while gliding and your character just does this silly backwards glide without ever turning around? Never had this problem in Wuthering Waves. Turning around just feels smooth and responsive, and you are also capable of maintaining control of your direction while falling. The biggest highlight of Wuthering Waves is its combat. If I'm being 100% honest, this is what Genshin Impact's combat should have been from the very beginning. It's what I was expecting and hoping for back in 2020 when I played it for the first time. The combos are easy to do but feel satisfying to pull off. The dodging feels good and the parry mechanic triggered my Sekiro-deprived brain. I do think it would have been nice if you could parry every single attack an enemy throws at you rather than just a few specific attacks. However, this is Kuro Games we're talking about, creators of Punishing Ray Raven and exceptional combat, such as... Given their history, I was hoping that the combat system in Wuthering Waves would be much more developed than its current iteration. As of now, each character that I've managed to get my hands on feels like a Genshin character with better basic attacks. You have your elemental skill and your elemental burst equivalents, which are known as resonance skill and resonance liberation respectively. Then, the game decides to sprinkle in new skill types like a passive or core mechanic called a Forte circuit, which generally revolves around every character's unique resource meter, an intro skill, which triggers whenever we swap to a character, and an outro skill, which triggers when we swap that character out. Compare all of these with PGR's skills and you'll find yourself overwhelmed. I'm going to do a quick overview since I've only dabbled in PGR's mechanics a long time ago. In a nutshell, every character in PGR has at least 3 skills, an ultimate, a core passive, an intro skill, and combos that are more complex to pull off than what is offered in Wuthering Waves. I'm sure I've missed some other skills that I do not recall, and I do hope that PGR fans will drop in the comment section and correct me on what I've missed. Point is, I was expecting more from Wuthering Waves' combat system. It is by no means bad, but God, I was hoping it would be more than this. The exploration is by far what disappointed me the most in Wuthering Waves. As much as I wanted to like this game, the fact remains that in terms of exploration, Kuro Games just decided to copy Genshin as much as possible. You have huge swaths of terrain littered with chests and puzzles, and I don't know about you, but I am tired. I am burnt out on this style of exploration where I have to go around the map picking up all the trash left behind by the devs for crumbs of currency so that I can pull for characters. This is actually what made me stop playing Genshin in 4.3. I mean, just look at this. This is all the important loot you need to find if you want to get every single bit of free currency available in the game. This is too much and kills any desire I have for exploration. This is why I prefer Star Rail's approach to exploration. You have a reasonable amount of chests to find, and you also get a counter on the map that tells you exactly how many chests you're missing, and whether it's an actual chest, a trotter, or a lordly trash can. You have 834 chests, 134 Sonance caskets, and 46 bulb flies. When I go out into the world, I'm not going to enjoy taking in the sights because I'm going to be too busy looking for all 1014 objectives so I can get my pull currency. Now, this is my personal opinion as a burnt out Genshin player, so it might not reflect the general player opinion at all. Personally, I think Wuthering Waves would benefit from having less of these chores on the map. Reduce the number by half at the very least and increase the rewards in the remaining chests so that players don't miss out. Then, focus on providing more interesting content than just go here and collect. Do more zone quests with interesting plots. Maybe have some dynamic events pop up here and there that offer an increased chance of getting some valuable echoes. Don't just give me a checklist and tell me to go wild. The story in this game is definitely not a strong point, though to be fair, you can't expect the game to start strong and be interesting right out of the gate. This is the beginning of Wuthering Waves. It needs time to set up the world for you, introduce the characters and the conflicts that you will be encountering in your adventure on Sol 3. So while I had no expectation that the story was going to blow me away from the get-go, I do have a few gripes with it. From the get-go, I have a problem with how Yang Yang and Chixia are so overly attached to the rover. Ladies, you just met this guy and now he's your everything. What the hell? I swear, from the moment you meet these girls, it's like their entire world started revolving around you. They go out of their way to make you the center of every single thing they do. Now, there's nothing wrong with having 2 waifus fawn over you, but it feels rushed, unearned, fake. It feels like all they're trying to do is curry up favor with you for an ulterior motive. Which, considering how the story plays out, would have been an interesting plot point, but that's not the path the story wants to take. Instead of making Yang Yang and Chixia try and manipulate you, they genuinely care and are worried about you, which doesn't make sense because they just met you. Sure, some worry is warranted because you find a guy passed out in the wild, but where is this gushing affection coming from? It's actually sad, because I heard that Chixia in the CBT was actually very distrustful of the rover to the point that she pulled out a gun on him out of fear. That was great! That is the normal reaction someone should have when seeing something they don't understand. Oh god, this random guy we found just swallowed an enemy with his bare hands. Nobody in this world is capable of doing that, and we're not sure if he's a friend or foe. In a world full of monsters, bandits, and other threats that are categorized as calamity class, I think it's warranted to ascertain if this unknown person is a threat or not, especially after doing something so abnormal for a resonator. That would have been a much more interesting introduction to Chixia, and I'm sad they had to gut it because players were offended at a normal, fearful reaction. I'm all for developers listening to player feedback, but this is one of the rare cases where I think they should have ignored the players and done their own thing. It would have provided an obstacle in the relationship between the rover and Chixia, something that needed to be overcome and that would lead to a better understanding of one another. Aside from that, the main story quest barely gives us any male characters to interact with. The only time I've been introduced to a male character was during Ling Yang's character companion quest, or in the most recent point I've reached in the main story where they introduce Alto. I'm all for collecting waifus in this game, but give me some bros to hang out with too. I do have to say, however, that I enjoy the fact that Wuthering Waves seems to have no issue with putting a bit more of a mature spin on its story. There are moments where I was pleasantly surprised to see that Kuro Games has slipped in some profanity here and there.
We ain't got the balls to rob the army, but with stuff just sitting around, why not?
I'm alright with this. Otherwise, Wuthering Waves is alright. It has an okay story, nothing out of the ordinary, with some interesting bits whenever Scar was involved. It's all a bit generic, but hey, I remember Final Fantasy XIV started out like a generic story, and then it built itself into one of the best RPG stories of all times, so I won't hold this as a point against the game. If they can fix the obnoxious, overly attached companions and actually give them other personality traits other than "I must like the MC," then we should see improvements overall. Moving on to character design. The character designs are okay. Just okay. They're not amazing, they're not jaw-dropping, they're just okay. I do have to admit with a heavy heart that Genshin Impact still takes first place when it comes to designing unique-looking characters. I don't know who they have on that design team, but they must have the best pay in the industry considering what they're coming out with. On the flip side though, Wuthering Waves has a much more interesting character model. I'm not sure why, but they just look higher quality to me and allow for a larger range of emotions to be expressed. Maybe it's because they actually are of higher quality, or because I like these more mature looking characters, or maybe it's just their eyes that stand out to me a lot. Something I'd very much like to see for fun would be seeing these two design teams create a character for the other game. I'd love to see Wuthering Waves design team come up with a character for Genshin Impact and vice versa. Now, it's already widely known that there are a variety of bugs in the game, some big, some small. The community is already aware of these and the devs themselves have already addressed the issue, so I won't regurgitate all of that. I will just mention the bugs I've encountered, which are mostly related to sound mixing and cutscenes. There have been moments in cutscenes where there is more text in the dialogue box than it can show. If that specific part of the quest isn't voiced, then you'll be left with many unfinished sentences. On the sound mixing side, there are cutscenes where some voice lines aren't aligned well with the character actions, or with the text in the dialogue box. Similarly, certain voice lines just cut off and skip towards the next voice line before actually finishing. Lastly, volume mixing is an issue. I recall thinking during one of Scar's cutscenes that the story would have had more of an impact if the music volume and voice volume would have been better matched. Features, mechanics, and bugs aside, it's time to talk about how the game feels. At first glance, it's a game that feels good to play and there's enough content to keep you engaged for a while. But the more time you put into the game, the more you'll start to realize how much was copied from Genshin Impact. I'm going to be blunt. Almost everything in this game aside from character design, combat system, and ecosystem is pretty much a carbon copy of Genshin Impact. You have the towers that reveal the map, waypoints to teleport to, world bosses that you kill for materials to level up your characters, domains to farm materials for skills or weapons, the icons in the user interface are placed almost the same, some icon designs look similar, the shop looks the same, the character interface looks the same. You have a battle pass, an adventure rank, a world level, an adventurer's guild that gives out rewards. You have oculi scattered across the world to increase your stamina bar. On and on it goes. Now, there's nothing wrong with taking inspiration from a game and improving upon it. A wise man once said, you don't have to reinvent the wheel, and I agree. But this feels more than just taking inspiration to me. So much so actually, that when I started playing Wuthering Waves, I didn't feel the honeymoon period at all. There was nothing. In fact, it felt like I just started playing Genshin on a new account and was struggling to catch back up to where my old account was. That's very saddening to me because I wanted Wuthering Waves to be a great game. It's not a bad game by any means, but it could have been so much better. I can see this game being an absolute blast for people that never played Genshin Impact, or for Genshin refugees that got sick of not being listened to for the past 3.5 years. But for players like me, that are just tired of the Genshin formula, this game might not be for you unless you really enjoy the combat system. Last thing I'm going to say is that I hope that Wuthering Waves evolves from the stage it is currently in, because it makes the game appear like it doesn't really have an identity of its own and is just following the coattails of something else. I don't think that's a good look for Kuro's brand. But what do you think? Was your experience any better? Do you enjoy the game? Do you maybe feel the same way I do? Feel free to leave a comment down below. I'm actually very eager to hear what other people have to say. And while you're in there, I'd very much appreciate if you could subscribe and leave a like to help with the algorithm. But that's going to be about it for me. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Until then, have a good one.